Whoop. Well, that's what happens when you try to push buttons on your phone and drive at the same time. You drive over a giant rock that lines your driveway. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Yeah, I know, Charlie. We'll be at the park soon-ish. Okay, trying to make this more of a daily habit. So I'm recording again. Posted yesterday's video. It went live this morning. We're live. Yeah, today's going to be a little shorter because I have we can do the to the dog park part, but on the way back I have to run some errands, and it's just going to break things up in a funky way. So I don't know if I'll actually do it, but that's okay. So the thing that I have been thinking about, I should also say, like, that's it for this week, because later today Susie and I are going away for the weekend, and so I won't record again until Tuesday. Okay, so there was something I was thinking about yesterday, and I was talking to Susie, my wife, about it. I sort of grew up with, I want to talk about religion for a moment, which is a nice, very big topic. I was raised, I know, Charlie, I know, it's so hard to be you, I know. Yeah, you're okay. That's your pa. I was raised Jewish. It's not, my face doesn't exactly hide it. And I don't know, there was probably some part of my life that I sort of internalized some of the theology of it, and firmly believed in God. And then for a lot of my life, I decided that idea was silly. And I've now kind of settled somewhere in the middle, which is that it's just not possible to know. And I realize that that's sort of a boring answer for a lot of people. We recently rewatched Community, and there's an episode where they're all talking about their religions, and Britta describes herself as agnostic, and everyone boos her. And I understand that. It's like a little obnoxious, but it is also, it's sort of the only rational answer, right? Like, it's actually just all unknowable. But I've really gotten comfortable in the last, I don't even just want to say the last year and a half, but like across my life, and particularly, honestly, my training in statistical methods. The entire purpose of statistics isn't to give you a right answer, it's to tell you how likely your answer is to be wrong. And that's not a thing that people necessarily realize, right? Like, generally when people talk about data, they're like, oh, the data says this, the data says this. And those of us who are actually well trained in data science understand that no, not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily say that. Data is a perspective, and like any information, it depends on the source, it depends on how it was collected, it depends on what was and wasn't measured, and all of the statistical methods that exist are actually designed to help quantify uncertainty. They're not like quantifying the answer, they're helping you understand, like, okay, there's like only a 5% chance, if all of our assumptions are met, which is also a really big if, there's a 5% chance that this estimate is wrong by such and such an amount. That's what a confidence interval is, if you've heard of that. Anyway, we don't, this doesn't need to be statistics class, although there'll be days it might feel like it. But being comfortable with uncertainty is really important, because we live in a world that is pretty much entirely uncertainty. There is just a huge amount of randomness, right? It's just like everything is just things bouncing off each other all the time, and so there's kind of chaos that comes out of that. And there are too many variables going on at any given moment to measure. And we really like the idea of saying, like, oh, this one thing caused that one other thing. And it's like, well, the first thing was caused by like 50 different other things and was one of 50 different causes of the other thing. And the other thing often may have happened without that first thing. I know it's not really helpful when my examples are just thing, but hopefully you follow the larger point. So coming back to religion and coming back to the idea of God, so I've really just in the last year, I've become a lot more interested in religion than I ever used to be. And, for me, it's connected to, I've been struggling with the question of just like how to live a good life in a world that is really, really messed up. There's so much violence in this world. There's so much pain and suffering. And it happens at a systemic level, and it happens at an individual level, and it's everywhere. And it's really, really hard to know how to exist within a world like that. And it turns out religion has some pretty good answers, and it's not even just one religion. There's an old saying that every religion is one letter in the alphabet of truth, or something like that. And I have definitely found something that I can relate to in every religion that I have read about, and there are plenty that I haven't read about. But I've sort of started to Buddhism is the one that I've gotten sort of the most engaged with, but I've also I've gotten super into the philosophy of Jesus. Christianity as practiced with like the hierarchy of people telling you what God wants you to do, which isn't every version of Christianity, but it's a pretty common one, is one that I don't relate to as much. But the philosophy that I have kind of come to is that I think any religion you want to practice, if it brings you peace, that's great and that's wonderful. But because the world is so big and so complex, like it is literally not possible for it to be the case that everyone will burn in hell if they don't accept Jesus as the Messiah, and also everyone will burn in hell if they don't accept the God of the Quran, or like pick your thing that says that everyone will be punished if they're an unbeliever. They can't all be true. And that's fine, right? Like getting comfortable with uncertainty. So the place where I have landed is that, to me, the best way to practice religion is as though there's like, again, pick your religion or combination of religions or whatever, but take whatever doctrine there is. I know, Charlie, I know, we're like halfway there. Pick your doctrine. Charlie, I know, it's so hard to be you. I know, Beeps. I know. We'll be there in, an amount of time. So pick your doctrine, and just, assume that there's like a 50% chance that it's true and a 50% chance that it's wrong. And then cover those bases. And it turns out that if you do that, there's like a lot of peace to be found, and you can sort of get rid of the parts of any religion that propose, punishment and sort of violence, frankly. And you can just focus on making peace in the world. And I just don't think that any version of God is gonna be really angry at you if you try to make peace. And I also think that, if it turns out that all of this is just kind of here and there isn't a God, then making peace is still the right move to do. But you can't, again, something I've spent a lot of time thinking about, like, you can't make peace between other people until you're able to find peace within yourself. And that's a really hard thing to do in this world. And I, have talked a bit about privilege, and I'll talk more about my own privilege as an aristocratic straight white man. The world makes it easier for me to find peace than it makes it for other people, right? Like, I am not constantly having to justify my own existence. I am not constantly having to fight off people who want to destroy me just for who I am. I mean, there's a little bit of it because I'm Jewish. There are people on the internet who will put my name in parentheses, my grandparents survived the Holocaust. Like, if you think you're gonna get to me by putting my name in parentheses, that's you've got some stuff of your own to work through, which is fine. We all do. But again, finding peace is an important thing to do, and you really can't do it if you are constantly in survival mode. And the world forces most people into survival mode. And I say the world, but it's not the world, it's human society. It's the choices we have made about how to structure our society, and the fact that we treat some people as deserving of all kinds of power and freedom and wealth, and other people as deserving of punishment, and we blame people for their own predicaments all the time. And look, let's assume for a moment that it is someone's fault that they are poor, which is not actually what any of the social science literature suggests, but that's fine. Let's assume it's true. They still need help to get out of that situation. Everyone needs help. Everyone needs support. Everyone needs love. And you know what? If someone fucked up to get themselves into a bad position, that sucks. And maybe you can talk to them about it, but they still need help to get on a better footing and sort of to be able to find peace within themselves. But it's hard to help other people if you haven't been able to find peace for yourself. So a big part of what I've been doing is just working to find peace for myself. And yeah, I mean, this idea of the 50% chance of a religion being right is sort of a good way to manage all of the complexity of the world. I'm at a traffic light. I can look at you. Hi. I was talking to Susie about it last night, and I described it as Schrödinger's God, because it's like, I guess I'll back up. Not everyone necessarily knows. Probably a lot of you have heard of Schrödinger's cat, but don't know the reference. But it's a thought exercise from probability theory, and it's kind of grim because it's Schrödinger. The idea is you have a cat in a box, and there is a mechanism that is randomly set. I don't remember exactly how it works, but the gist of it is there's a poison gas pill that gets dropped into the box, and there's a mechanism that will randomly fire half of the time to trigger the poison gas, which means half of the time it'll kill the cat and half of the time it won't, which means when you're looking at the box from your perspective, you have a 50% dead and 50% alive cat in the box. Again, it's kind of grim. I guess Schrödinger was not a cat person. I mean, I have a dog, but I don't want to 50% kill any cats. But this idea of Schrödinger's God is just, there's, we can't really quantify it any more precisely than to say there's a 50% chance that there is no such thing as, let's say a conscious God, and 50% chance that there is. And so we actually kind of have to live as though both are true. Or at least as though both might be true. And that is the thing that frustrates me a lot when, people lean really heavily into religious doctrine and use it to do violence against other people. I just have a really hard time this is a big thing. Put yourself in God's shoes, right? Like, imagine you are God, you made the world. Do you want a society where you created, I know, Charlie, we're getting close to the dog park. You created this amazing, beautiful, endless world, right, with just incredible wonders in every direction, and you look at one wonder and then you look a little deeper into it and there are more wonders, and it's all the way down. And the people that you've made to explore that world and to appreciate that wonder insist on spending all of their time killing each other for not believing in you the right way and not worshiping you the right way. Like, that would be so frustrating. It's like being an artist and, putting, you're an artist and you get your first gallery show and everyone just argues over how to pronounce your name and doesn't look at the art. Like, that's how I think God must feel, if there is a God, about all of us and the way that we exist. It's, like, God created, if there's a God created all of these different people, and we're all here, right? We're all children of God, and so the idea that any of us should be fighting each other or killing each other for not conforming to what we think that God is just so arrogant and misguided and absurd. Like, we're all here. We gotta learn to love each other. Anyway, that's gonna be where we're gonna break because Charlie's losing his mind because we just pulled up at the dog park. So thanks, and that might be it for today. It might not. We'll find out. You'll know probably by the length down here. Okay, bye for now. I know, Beep. I know, here we go. Hi, one quick thing. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Economics.
Okay, I am managing to grab a minute here on the way home. I just had to go to the pharmacy, but now I've gone to the pharmacy until I can go home. I'm getting out of the parking lot. It's an adventure. And I'm never driving out of a parking lot. That's the most exciting thing. Good night. You can do it, pal.
There you go. Okay. All right. I'm just gonna start over here. Okay. Hi. I am on the way home from the supermarket, which is close to the dog park, so that was an easy stop. Now we're heading home. Where I left off was with this idea of, there's sort of the discussion of Schrödinger's God, and then just the idea. This is a concept that I've really come to embrace, honestly, which is just the world is really amazing, like top to bottom, right? Man, someone is really thumping that bass. There he is, bass thumper. Sorry, distracting bass. So an example of the world being amazing is just that a hobby that I decided to pick up last year, and this is definitely not going to be the last time I mention it. I may have even mentioned it yesterday. I don't know. I've started making cheese, and I'm not very good at it, and that's okay. But the thing that's kind of fun about learning to make cheese is that there are lots of different kinds of cheese, and each one has its own the different techniques that go into them are like complex, and they involve using different bacteria or different molds, different microbes. And there's the fact that there are all of these different incredibly microscopic organisms that will feed off of solidified milk, basically curdled milk, and turn it into something delicious, whether that's, I think I did mention this yesterday, whether that's blue cheese or mozzarella or whatever. So just if you limit yourself to cheese, even if you just limit yourself to hard cheeses, there's a whole universe of things to explore. And that's true for anything, right? If you're, my wife Susie is really into succulents, which are cactuses or a kind of them, but they're sort of, they've become really popular, so probably you know what succulents are. But they're a kind of plant, and they're sort of like hardy desert plants. And within the world of succulents, there are so many different kinds, and they all sort of have slightly different kinds of care that they involve. And international food is like that, right? They're just, the world is full of these universes that we don't even notice because we have so much going on in our lives as it is. But that to me really drives home this metaphor of God as an artist, where we have all of these incredible, beautiful, meaningful, and in some cases nutrient-giving, life-sustaining things all around us. There are so many different ways for life to exist. There are so many different ways just for human life to exist, that to reject it seems to me to be a rejection of the wonder of God's creation. And again, when I talk about God, there's a lot of unknown there, right? Like I understand that I cannot understand. And I think that is one of the most important parts about being human. But so I want to connect this to another thing I've been thinking about, which is something that is pretty dominant in not dominant, but present in the news in America. Is, I'm going to try putting up the windows because Charlie's road noise. Alright, he seems okay. Good. So something that is definitely present in the news in America, and not just in the news, but also in like legislation and sort of cultural conversation, is trans people, and like using different pronouns for people, and if people on the internet really like to debate whether a trans woman is really a woman or whether a trans man is really a man, and like people love to debate other people's existence, which is its own whole thing. But I think it is useful for me to sort of share my journey as very much not a trans person. I'm, a cishet white man. So when I was in college, which is over 15 years ago now, which is kind of depressing. It was, I don't want to say it was the beginning of conversation about trans people, but it was my first exposure to it, really. And there was a lot of conversation sort of within the school community about, particularly around pronouns, actually, which has obviously become a big part of the conversation broadly. And I remember, having a conversation with my roommates, there's the waving guy, about, so, now the conversation is mostly they, them pronouns, but back then it was, there was discussion of the pronoun ze, as a non-gendered pronoun, and I remember having a conversation with my roommates, and all of us were straight and cis, about, feeling like this was absurd, and feeling like we were sort of being put upon, and all of these things. And I remember a friend of mine from college transitioned, and their name on Facebook changed, and I actually ended up running into them on the street and calling them by their former name, and it wasn't an intentional slight. I didn't actually realize, sometimes people on Facebook just use synonyms, and not synonyms, pseudonyms, fake names. And so I didn't realize that it was an actual name change, and I still feel a little bad about it 15 years later. But that's sort of beside the point. The point that I have come to is to realize that it's just not my business to tell other people who they are. And if someone tells me this is who I am, and this is how I prefer to be referred to, then that's an opportunity for me to expand my own understanding of the world, and to make a new friend. And I now, it's a good deal later, and I have some really close friends who are trans, and I have some really close friends who are non-binary and use they, them pronouns, and I still mess up sometimes, but mostly not, and it's not that big a deal for me. It's a very small accommodation, in fact, and my life is so much richer for these friendships, and that, I think all of us, and especially the older we get, and I'm coming up on, what year is it? I'm coming up on 39. So, there are folks who are older than me, but plenty of folks who are younger. But I think as we get older, we get, very set in our ways, and we get frustrated by things that are new and by the world changing around us, because it's well, I've put all of my time and energy into figuring out how to exist in the world as I understand it, and now you're telling me my understanding of the world is wrong. But that's literally just the way that it has always been throughout history. The world is always changing. There's always new stuff happening. And, if you find it frustrating that there are now more categories of gender than there used to be, more categories is not a good or a bad. It's just a thing. And it's not like people have historically been having such a tough time with categories. I mean, there's a long history of people in America having been denied rights based on what category of black they are, right? They're different fractions of ancestry were sort of parsed and assigned. And fortunately we've done away with that idea, because it's, for one thing, it's imposed on other people about them, but it was used to do a lot of harm. But this is not that, right? This is people saying, I'm discovering who I am. Here's who I am. Please love and respect me for who I am. And there's such a tendency for us to react to that by saying, well, that can't be true. I know the world, and you can't be who you tell me you are. Or sometimes there's an assumption of someone's going to abuse it or use it in bad faith. And the truth is, basically the only thing where people really, really tend to try to be honest is about who they are, about their own identity, especially when it's one that the world doesn't necessarily respect. And, I know that's not always true, and there are people who have sort of claimed, particularly there are people who have claimed racial categories they don't have. Folks who do that, I think, have their own stuff going on, and I am not prepared to, I'm not qualified to diagnose that. But you don't need to worry about telling someone else that they are wrong about who they are. You can just listen and accept them for who they are and love them for who they are, because that's all any of us want. And, coming back to Schrödinger's God the Artist, that person is a child of God, and we don't get to decide what God does and doesn't make, and who God does and doesn't create. And when we try to do that, that's a reaction that comes from inside us. And we love to convince ourselves that what we're actually doing is serving as God's justice, but we're not. We're just taking out our own discomfort on other people. So what I would say is, it's okay if you don't start out in the right place, but it's worth listening to people and respecting people and trying to understand them rather than trying to tell them who you think they should be, because it is one aspect of finding peace in this crazy broken world. Okay, Charlie and I just got home. I got some stuff to do. Apologies for mixing like heavy things with a healthy dose of a little burpee today. So I will probably post this tomorrow, which is Friday, and then we'll be out of town for a couple days, and then I'll be back and there'll be more of this. So have a great weekend, and thank you for being here. Okay, bye.
Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe.
Okay, friends, hello. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. So it's now. I'm recording this several hours later, so I don't entirely remember everything I said, but I hope it was okay. I hope I didn't hurt anyone's feelings or anything. So I am now. Susie and I are up in Placerville, California, or actually down in Placerville, California, which is about an hour and a half from where we live in Grass Valley. So I spent the day in transit, but now I'm gonna do some meditating because honestly I really value the fact that that recording these videos gives me an impetus to meditate more, because it's a really honestly important practice for me, and it helps keep me grounded, and so I hope it will help keep you grounded also. It's so, we'll talk over time about like how much I have changed in the last just few years, but this is me now, to quote Gene from Bob's Burgers, who is the best. Anyway, gonna do same thing as yesterday, I think. Just I follow my breath all the way in, I follow my breath all the way out. I'm gonna sit here for 10 minutes. If you want to participate, you can. If you don't, you can skip this, because this is the end of the video. But yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna sit here in the car for 10 minutes. Also, wine country out here is great. We went to a really good winery. Strong recommend. Okay. Here we go, meditation time. Gonna push the thing, it's gonna do a bell. 10 minutes later, it's gonna do another bell. In the interim, I'm gonna think to myself, I follow my breath all the way in, I follow my breath all the way out. As my mind wanders, my thoughts drift away. Every so often, presumably, I will catch myself, and then I'll just return to, I follow my breath all the way in, I follow my breath all the way out. Do whatever works for you. And here we go. Okay, it's doing a countdown from 12, 11, 10. I'm gonna stop doing that, because that's sort of the opposite of the point of this. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. there we go. Oh, it's gotten darker. It is, yeah, it's evening time. Also, I apologize for the highway sounds. We're staying very close to the highway, so I hope that didn't mess things up for you all too much. Anyway, that's all. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. I mentioned this earlier. I may have even said goodbye earlier, not knowing if I'd get to do this part. So here I am again. Going to be off for the weekend. I will probably record again on Tuesday, which probably means I will post again on Wednesday. And so I hope that when that moment comes, it's one that you can enjoy. But in the interim, have a great weekend. I don't know, well, you can't really, it's hard to go places during the pandemic. I mean, one thing that's nice about being in remote-ish California is that it makes it a little easier to go places without having to interact with a lot of people. But, pandemic life is... it sucks. It sucks for all of us. It sucks. And hopefully we're getting closer to the end of it than we are to the beginning, because it's been a rough year, I think, for all of us. And I know I haven't even talked about it much on here. I'm sure I will. But for now, I'm going to go enjoy the company of my wife, and I hope you enjoy the company of whoever you're with, or just your own company, because that's also good. And you're great. So I'll talk to you next week. Okay, bye.